Irish Breakdown fans, Notre Dame fans across this wonderful country and the globe, we are here on this wonderful Tuesday 17th talking about it's still wild, talking about a Notre Dame playoff game that is coming up on Friday. You know, Trev, sitting there thinking about it, it's a pretty historic thing, and it's a historic thing that we're going to be there for, which I am so honored and honestly truly blessed to be a part of that, Trevor. I'm excited about that. But we're going to talk about that today. We're going to dive into today's show. We're going to start off actually with a little bit of a conversation about Marcus Freeman's contract extension. I have some thoughts on it. And Pete Bavacqua, the athletic director, had some comments on it today as well that we'll dive into. And then, of course, we'll talk about that maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Once we're done with that, we're going to dive into a breakdown of what I think is the most important matchup of this game, which is the Notre Dame offense against the Indiana defense. And so we're going to have some fun with that. We're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the Notre Dame offense and why it works as well as it does. What is the reason behind the success? Why is why were they so successful this season in the things that they do? We'll talk about, the Notre Dame run game, the biggest questions and concerns. We'll talk about the Notre Dame pass game. We'll talk about the Indiana defense and just some different things that they do that can present some problems for you. We got some film, not some film. We got some screenshots of like different things that we're going to show that we're going to bring up during the game. We're going to talk stats, man. It is going to be a fun breakdown today, Trev. I'm ready to rock and roll, and I know you are too.
Yeah, I'm ready, man. I hate the fact that it's still only Tuesday. You know what I mean? Oh, my goodness. I mean, I was waking up hoping that it was going to be like Thursday after the show. I was going to get ready to drive up to South Bend. But unfortunately, we have a couple of days to wait. But it's exciting. I mean, you touched on it in the opening, man. And Notre Dame Stadium is one of the most iconic venues in all of sports, I would make the argument. And very rarely when something has been around for that long do you get to experience something for the first time. So it's really awesome that, we're going to be up there and we're going to be a part of it. We have the tailgate going on afterwards, or before. So I'm excited to be a part of everything. I'm excited to see the game. I'm ready to go, man. It's time. It is time.
So, Trev, we this kind of happened a couple days ago, and you and I haven't had a chance to talk about it. I know that they talked about it on Ivy Nation Sports Talk, but I wanted you and I to kind of have a chance to talk about it. And I thought today, after the press conference from Pete Bavacqua, it was a proper time to talk about it. And that is that Marcus Freeman signed a contract extension with Notre Dame. It is reported now. Notre Dame doesn't release contract details for coaches. It's always laugh whenever you see these things like schools that spend the most on their football programs or highest paid coaches, and you always see these. It's all public schools. You never see the private schools on there because they don't have to release information because they're not a state agency, so they don't have to release that information. And so we don't know what the contract is. We do know, however, that Marcus Freeman's original contract was a 5-year contract, so he has 2 years left on that. The reports are, and the people that reported the numbers, I believe, are trustworthy news people. Heather Dinich reported it. I believe that Nicole Auerbach reported it, and I also believe that Ross Dellinger all reported it. And the Notre Dame media will give national people like that information that they won't give us. So if Heather Dinich is reporting from a source that it's a 4-year extension, I think there's a lot of merit to that being an accurate reflection of what Coach Freeman's new contract is going to look like, which is a 6-year extension. And then Pete Bavacqua, the athletic director, spoke today about a lot of different things. It was actually a very informative press conference. I was very impressed by it. But he talked about the fact that there was no discussion about there being any sort of opt-out or any sort of change in the contract for exceptions to go to the NFL or to go to Ohio State. That was a question that was specifically asked of Marcus Freeman. And so that was, I thought, interesting. And from what I understand, that's not something that Marcus Freeman brought up and Notre Dame rejected. I'm told that's something that Marcus Freeman never broached with Notre Dame. Now, we don't know terms of the buyout, things along those lines. Those are things that people ask. We don't know the answers to that. But what we do know is he's signed an extension. What we believe to be true is that it is a 4-year extension, which puts him at Notre Dame for 6 more years. And we're also pretty confident saying he is now one of the highest paid coaches in college football, which is going to put him up somewhere around $10 million, maybe $1 million or $2 million less, maybe $1 million over. But he's going to be the highest paid coach in college football. So we're going to first talk about that, Trevor, and then we'll talk about something else that Pete Bavacqua mentioned today also when it comes to the extension that he signed with Marcus Freeman. But first things first, Trev, just your overall thoughts on Notre Dame announcing that Marcus Freeman, not so much the timing, we'll talk about the timing next, but just your thoughts on Notre Dame. What were your thoughts when Notre Dame announced that Marcus Freeman was signing a 4-year extension?
Yeah, man. I mean, big picture, I think they signed the right guy for the job. Now, there's going to be a lot of questions surrounding, is Marcus Freeman a championship caliber coach? Well, luckily for us, we're going to find that out over the next, 6 weeks. But I don't think there's any doubt that Marcus Freeman is the right person to lead this program. You go through and you look at the things that you look for in a Notre Dame man and somebody who wants to, better this university. And he comes from that old school mindset of, leave something better than you found it, which is a tall order when you're talking about a school like Notre Dame. And I think Marcus Freeman really embodies who is a really good, ideal collegiate football coach. He invests in young people. And he knows that to build success, you have to find ways to get young men to perform above their God-given abilities. And he doesn't view this as, a destination or a lily pad destination to get him to that next thing. He loves being here. And you can tell he loves this program. You see him going to women's basketball games. You see him going to men's basketball games and supporting the other Notre Dame athletics that he's a part of. So he views Notre Dame as like the whole big picture, not just I'm just here to be a football coach and don't talk to me about anything else. Mm-hmm. So in those regards, and just seeing how much, the players and everybody around the program respects him, I couldn't be more thrilled about Marcus Freeman getting the extension that he did. And like I said, the biggest question for him is he the championship caliber head coach? I think he's recruiting at that level, getting there in most areas. I think he speaks that way. Now it's just the product on the field has to reflect everything that we're hearing, and we're going to find that out here soon.
And let's be real about something. There's 134 now Division I football teams. That question exists for 132 of those football teams. Because unless you're the head football coach at Clemson right now, or you're the head football coach at Georgia right now, nobody else has experience winning championships at this level. And especially now that Mac Brown's, because you could say Mac Brown, but even then it's like, okay, but he did that at Texas. Is he going to do that at North Carolina?
Sure.
Didn't do it the first time and didn't do it and won't do it this time. But those are kind of the questions. Everybody has that question right now. Ohio State has that question. Michigan has that question. Penn State has that question. Alabama has that question. Texas has that question. And that's something that Notre Dame's going to have to, we're going to find out, right, if he can be that. But I think it was obviously a big hire. I second everything that you said. And Pete Bavacqua talked about that this today as well. He talked a lot about how Marcus Freeman interacts with the young people, not just on the football team, but just at the school. You see Coach Freeman and his wife Joanna at, almost every women's basketball game I've seen so far this year. You know what I mean? And I just find it ironic. I usually don't talk about coaches' wives, so I just thought this was hilarious. It was like them, and I think it was Kayla McBride was there and a couple other people that looked to be famous. And I'm like, yep. Coach Freeman's wife is winning the sneaker game right now. She had some serious kicks on the other day in that one. I was like, okay, there you go, Mrs. Freeman. There you go. All in good fun. But, it's just someone who's embraced. That's why I never bought the whole, if Ohio – I've said this for a while. If Ohio State comes calling, I'm not worried about that. I don't think Marcus Freeman is one of those people. Like, would Marcus Freeman in certain circumstances jump at the chance to become a head coach at his alma mater? In certain instances and circumstances, absolutely. Is he going to do that now that he's at Notre Dame? I never felt that was something that was going to happen. That's not a shot at Ohio State. It's just sometimes you find a job that you didn't realize how much you love that job. And I think that's what Marcus Freeman is dealing with right now, and why I believe that this is, I just wasn't worried about it. And then the whole NFL thing, I just kind of thought was a joke. That was nothing more than, in my opinion, leverage. First of all, it was just BS made up rumors in some instances. What people in the media have a tendency to do now is to take their own wish lists and then turn it into an article and say, well, this is what I'm hearing. And they'll pretend that it's information because nobody can question them on it. Well, who's your source? I can't reveal my sources. That's not right. I know people do this. I know for a fact that people do this. Now, I don't know who. I don't know specifically. No, I'm not going to say who, but I do know some people do that, and I'm sure it's more prominent than you realize, especially for some of the not big name people. Like Heather Dinich doesn't need to do that. Ross Dellinger doesn't need to do that. Pete Thamel doesn't need to do that. I'm talking about like some of the smaller people that are starting a lot of these rumors that aren't known. They're not famous people. They're just trying to get their clicks. The other part of it is anything that was legit in that regard was Marcus Freeman's agent, in my opinion, this is a guess. It would be nothing more than Marcus Freeman's agent being smart and saying, hey, I'm trying to get a contract negotiation that I was told started between the agent and the school back over the summer, because an agent's got to do his job. And so that's what you do. Hey, look, these other schools are talking to me, and they're talking to my client and all this other kind of stuff, these NFL teams. I never saw Marcus Freeman as an NFL coach. Not that he's not capable of it, but everything that he seems to be about is about young people and developing young people. And it would surprise me if he chose to go to that next level and coach that level. So at least now, maybe in 10 years, if he's had a lot of success and he's won a couple titles and he's like, you know what, I'm tired of this year-round grind, and they haven't fixed some of the things that are going on right now, maybe down the road. But right now, and I'm talking like 10 years and a couple titles later is what I'm talking about. So I just felt like Notre Dame was the right fit. And the timing thing, Trev, so you and I had said we thought that they would get a deal done before the playoffs started. So that didn't surprise us. What surprised me was that they announced the deal before the first playoff game. That did surprise. I just thought they'd at least wait till that was over, maybe till the playoffs over. But here's why I think, and again, this is not intel, this is just my opinion. Here's why I think that they're doing what they're doing and why I'm on board with it. Because my whole thing is no distractions, just, focus on the team. But Marcus Freeman kept getting asked about it. He was asked again, I think, last week about the NFL and the rumors in the NFL. I'm quite confident that teams recruiting against Notre Dame in the portal right now are using some of those rumors to point to portal kids like, hey, you don't even know if Marcus Freeman's going to be there. Ohio State likes him. The NFL's calling. That Bears job came open. That's not gonna work till that's not gonna come up until like February. So this is going to kind of be around, and this window's happening pretty quick. And some of your own players may be kind of buying into that and thinking, well, if he's not going to be here, I may jump into portal now. I think it was announced when it was because there also needed to be a level of, we need to quiet all that stuff down, because people in the media are going to keep talking about it. And his answers weren't exactly, guys, I'm not going to the NFL. I have no interest in going to the NFL. It was more of like, hey, look, when you have team success, you're going to have individual recognition and success, and that's all that this is. He never said, I'm interested. He never said he wasn't. It was more just sort of which honestly, if you're in the midst of a contract negotiation, you probably shouldn't admit that the leverage you have is not something you would consider. This way, he can now be like, no more questions about that. I'm signed. We're good. Let's move forward. And I think it got rid of one of those negative talking points that schools were using about Coach Freeman, who's a hot name right now for the NFL and for Ohio State. And I think it makes a lot of if that's happening, and I believe that it is, right, then it makes a lot of sense for them to say, let's get this out of the way now. They announced it, Sunday, right? So we get this whole week now. It wasn't announced like 2 days before the game. It was announced on Sunday. Monday, they're hot and heavy into their week of practice. It's over with. It's done with. I'm not worried about it. Let's move forward and let's go win a football game. So even though I thought that they would wait till after the playoffs, because I think Coach Freeman really wanted to have – it's why they don't want any portal stuff being talked about. It's why they won't – it's why they're doing a lot to kind of keep the portal stuff of who they're looking out and who they're looking after quiet, because they don't want anything to distract this football team's race to a championship. And that's really what it boils down to. And so I think you are almost kind of forced to a degree to say, hey, we need to get this done now. We need to answer this now, get it over with, announce it on a Sunday, and then we can move forward with our game prep. I don't think it's a coincidence it happened Sunday night before they really dove hot and heavy into game week, because yesterday's Monday practice was essentially their Tuesday practice. And the Tuesday practice is the first like really hot and heavy of game week type of practice. And so now it's over with, going out tomorrow, and it's time to rock and roll and focus on beating Indiana. So I think that's why they did it when they did it. And if I'm right on the read of this situation, it actually makes a lot of sense for them to announce it now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think to your point, I think they use this distraction to nullify the other distractions. Right. To your point, talking about the transfer portal and all this stuff heating up, Notre Dame is getting ready to, Notre Dame's getting ready to play in the first ever home playoff game, and they don't need the distraction of, well, is their coach going to be here after this season? There's all these head coaching jobs in college coming open. There's the Bears job that's going to be vacant. Odds are there's going to be more NFL head coaching jobs that are going to be vacant at the end of the season if things keep trending the way that they are. So, I like the timing more than I thought that I was going to, if that makes sense. Because, you and I talked a lot before. I think that something could be done. I think they're going to wait till after the playoffs to announce it, or at least until after the first playoff win. But given all of the other things that have happened this season and all the other outside noise, I think they kind of use this to tamper some of those down. It's done. It's out of the way. And I agree with you. I think the timing that it coming out on Sunday is fitting. So then you just have essentially an entire week of normal practice to say, hey, it's time to focus on Indiana. It's time to go. It's time to get the team ready. So I agree.